going to talk about some of my work, and I don't want to bore you with it, but well, let me go back to grid view for a second here. This all this work. Let me just crank up the thumbnails so we can kind of fill the page. All this work was done. I did all this work at least 20 years ago. There wasn't any such thing as Photoshop or digital cameras. It was a dream. And so at the very beginning of my career, I was looking for ways to go beyond photography, go beyond just a single image. So I'm doing some crazy things. You know, I'm actually, have a picture of this dart, and I'm using a 4x5 camera, and I'm using projected light pattern with an in-camera mask. I have shot a 4x5 image of a texture, processed that, put it into a mask, shot the picture of the dart, moved, did a second exposure with the background light through diffusion with the in-camera mask in front of the film. All right, you'll probably get some questions about that. But my point is that I was always experimenting with ways to combine images, to create things, just going from multiple sets. I mean, there's 4 or 5 different images in here combined eventually on one sheet of 4x5 film. I would do multiple exposures on a Polaroid, and then expose the Polaroid in the, how did I do this? I don't even remember how I did it, but a lot of different layers, a lot of texture before Photoshop, before, all that. This was crazy. I took an 8x10 camera, projected an image in the darkroom of a big crowd scene onto 8x10 Polaroid, floated the Polaroid emulsion off, glued them down to a piece of watercolor paper, rephotographed that on a sheet of 4x5, shot the hand in front of it, and eventually got this little globe thing in front of it too. So I wanted to give you guys just like a history of where I come from. This is actually a real early shot. This was, God, 25 years ago, I think. I got this old projector this is back in the day of light painting. I've got like a flashlight that I'm lighting this thing with, and then I'm using an image of texture that I slide into the 4x5 camera. I actually then do another exposure after turning the projector on and drag a sheet of paper in the beam of light, exposing just the beam. So that's early work, and I show you that by way of saying that's what, that's my history. That's where I'm coming from. This is early work, digital. It's got a lot of that same feeling, but I was at the Photo Expo in New York and walking back to my hotel, and the moon was out, and so I did this whole composite, and it actually sort of pays homage to the Polaroid peels by digitally layering that in. Okay. Real simple composites. This was down at a bullfight in San Miguel de Allende, and so it's just a shutter drag, motion blur image, composited with an old wall from that same area, probably shot the same day. So just the two of them blended together. So it, like I mentioned earlier, it doesn't have to be a 100 meg or 100 gigabyte file with 100 layers. Something really simple like this is very effective. It's still one of my favorite images, and this is also pretty early on, but I show you this. I'm playing with textures, and you can't be afraid to experiment to the max. I mean, this has never made it out of Lightroom catalog. I don't think it's ever been printed, but I mean, it's not really my flavor, but I want to show it to you because this can take you in all kinds of new directions, okay? Also, you know, then I had a guy, a friend, give me a case, one of these clear cases with all these Beetles mounted in it because he knew I liked strange and interesting things. And, you know, it was a wonderful gift. And I looked at him for 2 seconds, you know, it took 2 seconds before I asked, can I bust it open? And he says, I figured you would. So I started photographing these insects and creating the backgrounds. And, you know, I have photographed their name, I photographed a piece of Scotch tape, I photographed an old book, a ruler, you know, there's probably 15 different images that I've blended together to create this. And it leads to, you know, it leads to a series of images. And I mean, they're just, you know, they're just fun. I'll just show you a few of these. And then, yeah, then there's the whole butterfly series. This is the, I mean, similar to the image that was posted on the creativeLIVE site, the blue butterfly. And so there's a lot of masking, there's a lot of imagery, a lot of blending, a lot of feathering that goes into these, and you can get some really fun stuff. I mean, I love this. You know, he gave me that case of Beetles, and I started photographing these insects, and then, you know, I started going on eBay and ordering bugs from all over the world. It's like, oh God, I got to get that one, you know. That one's crazy. This large print behind me has become the signature image for Photomorphos, which is a company that David Volkemer, my partner over here monitoring me, is, you know, we have formed a corporation called Photomorphos, and we are, you know, putting up some video tutorials on, you know, some of the techniques. It's, you know, we're trying to form a community of like-minded, you know, enthusiasts for Photoshop and textures and this kind of thing. But this was, you know, I don't know who the kid is that has to go into the cage to get the next one of these to be mounted up and sent out. And it's like, these things are probably that big. But, you know, but interesting, I had at an art fair, I had this in a large print for sale, and this guy comes up and says he wanted to buy this print for his wife for their anniversary. And I went, I'm not a marriage counselor, but have you thought this through? And he goes, no, she saw it online, absolutely loved it. I got some questions about it, but she loved it, so you never know. And here's our signature space.
Doug, are you saying you have a large insect?
Hmm?
Are you saying you have a large insect collection at your house?
Not in the house, in my studio.
How many bugs do you have?
Well, not a huge amount. I've probably got maybe 30 or 40 that I've ordered and collected. And I mean, a lot of them are still waiting for me. But you know, then you get sidetracked, you know. Then it became flowers and making these interesting, more graphic flower portraits. So this is a whole series. Both the bugs and this is, they're examples of where you can take an object and create a whole piece based on an object and not a scene, okay? This was an interesting one because it's a Atticus atlas moth, and if you look at the wing tips, they look like snake heads, which is nature's way of, you know, warding off predators. And this one fascinated me so much because the whole idea of the decoration on this insect was the camouflage. And so, you know, I sort of built that into the piece. You know, it's hard to tell really where the background and the bug, you know, they sort of blend together and camouflage one another. So,
Doug, do you use a macro lens for the insects?
These were all shot on a I think it was a phase 1 digital back on a like a 405, and so it was very macro, and I actually had to. This was back even before focus stacking was thought of. But I would shoot these insects 3 times, one at the very top level, one in the medium level, and one down where the feet were, and then blend the parts that were in focus. And you can do this now in Photoshop, but you can blend the parts that were in focus and then outline the whole thing and assemble the background out of a dozen or 2 images. Okay. All right, so I'm going to race through here. Each one of these has war stories, and I can get pretty bogged down. But this is from the coast of Maine, and some of these can, and I want to talk about my, creative thoughts when I'm shooting these. This lived in my library for 5 years before I did anything with it, because it spoke to me often, but I didn't know what to say back. And I woke up one morning, and I don't know if I had just seen a show on old Dutch master landscape painters or what, but I knew then and there that was the place I wanted to take it. So, and well, yeah. So, action and selection of textures. Textures and the way that you treat the image is often dictated, by the image. And I mean, that is the case. It's like your job is to be the detective to find out what that image sort of means to you. And the whole action with the bull and the bullfighter and this coarse texture really spoke to me about, what that was all about. And this pan blur shot of this horse at a rodeo in Mexico. Again, a simple composition with some textural elements added and color and tone. Okay, the thing about what we do as artists is, people go, gosh, your work doesn't really just focus on one thing. You're all over the map, and so much interests you, and it's your job to, something is going to say, hey, take my picture, and it's your job to kind of uncover the reasoning and what it is that the kernel, what it is about it that made you respond to it, and then display that for everybody to see. Okay, industrial. I love industrial stuff. And I think that relates to the patina as well. Travels. Creating stories. This is stitched together from a number of things. A rodeo down in Mexico. A park in France. Okay, I'm glad I just blew this up, because this sort of lived in my library. And I love the architecture of Paris, the regal, orderly thing. And the only thing that's not, in a way, orderly in here are these kids. There's 3 kids in there. There's the boy down in this corner. He's wearing a green t-shirt. This boy over here is going in another direction. He's wearing a blue t-shirt. This guy over here is going in a different direction. He's wearing a red t-shirt. Red, green, and blue. I love that. Nobody else sees that, but it means a lot to me. It's like, that's what we work in, RGB. And it was right there, and I went, oh. The other thing, at 5 in the morning, you own any place you go. You don't see Notre Dame and the plaza in front of Notre Dame empty unless you're up at 5 in the morning to see it. So that's one thing. And then, it just looks like an old postcard, which is the whole idea. Okay. Where else do I want to take you? Telling stories. And it harks back to the influence of N.C. Wyeth and other art. And our capabilities now as digital artists to be able to do it. You know, for instance, I was up in this Sea of Finland, outside of Finland. They have this archipelago with all these little red homes on there. This is about a dozen different images put together. It's my memory of the place. It doesn't exist. The lighthouse is from one spot, the homes from another, the ocean from another, the seagulls from another, the cloud from another, and then textures laid in. So I'm able to show people how I felt about this place, what I remember about this place. Yeah, there's so many. I mean, even, you even have fun at Christmas. I mean, this house I shot in summer, and I've added the snow and the smoke and the lights and the whole scene and dressed it out and sent it out as a Christmas card one year. So I love that about the toolkit that we have now. And for you guys that shoot people, this is something that, where I go, I mean, a lot of these are shot long lens, far away, in a crowd, and then the images are composited together to create, I call them cinematic narratives because they're my kind of movie poster memory of the place and the people that I met. So this is really, this is the same bullfight in San Miguel. So very fun. Oh, all right. That's me holding the rope, and my brothers and a good friend, and we did a horseback pack trip up in the flat top wilderness in the Rockies, and I wanted to get a picture of all of us together up there. We were chased off the mountaintop by a blizzard, and I mean, it was a scene out of Snowy River or something like that. It was amazing, but there was no opportunity to get this shot, and we got down. It was a little bit spooky. But before anybody could change or shower or anything like that, I lined everybody up against my brother's brown garage door with low skylight coming from the side. Because I knew that the color tone that I was going to be working with and the scenic backdrop was going to be in those tones. Make a note, hint. If you're going to do some compositing and you have an idea about what you're going to do in advance, choose a background for your subject that's similar to the background that you want to place him or her on. There's a lot of sophisticated masking techniques that we're going to talk about and get into tomorrow, but your life will be a whole lot easier if you're able to match tones with the background that you're going to be placing them on. Okay.
Doug, I saw a cute tweet that came through that said, "Please put me on your Christmas card list." That's from Teresa Tuno.
Huh?
That was from Teresa in Twitter.
That's awesome.
So can I be on that list too, please?
Yeah, it's getting to be bigger and bigger. Okay. So this is cool. I talked to you about shooting elements before and being open. So one of the things is, we train ourselves to really look for the perfect picture through the camera. And you need to know your camera, and you need to know you need to know take proper exposure, everything. You have to be a craftsman with the camera so that when you shoot a picture, you have material. But here's a couple of things that I shot. This is, let me just select these two and get rid of this window. So it's kind of a outline version of before. This was some plant that my wife brought home or something like that, and she put it in this little glass vase, and I went, wow, I really love the little tendrils on that plant. I want to do a picture of it. I set it out on the back patio, shot a picture of it, and it stayed in the library. Eventually ended up being this. And so with your expanded toolkit, you're going to be able to be thinking in terms of, you know, this is how I can think about shooting elements. My wife is from Hawaii. I'm over in Hawaii a lot, and I wanted to create an image with these egrets, and you know, we were getting ready to leave. I think maybe even we were on our way to the airport and hadn't gotten my egret picture. I'd gotten some of the other background images that I wanted to use in this composite, but hadn't gotten my egret picture, and we went through a traffic roundabout, and so this is shot out of the window of a roundabout with a long lens, and then, you know, dropped into here. This is where it came to live. Okay. So gather elements, you know, harvest elements. Okay. I'll show you this last one. And this is where some of the masking techniques can be handy to know. I loved the hammock. Can everybody see this? Do I need to zoom in here? Let me do this. So I loved the hammock in here. Let me zoom in even further. And the little chairs outside this little house. It just evoked this real Hawaiiana, old-fashioned, we're there to hang out, relax. But what's behind here is very cluttered, and you know, it's not the message that I wanted to send. It's got the mountains, it's got this other home and everything like that. I only wanted to keep these elements. So, I mean, this is a labor of love, because all these palm fronds against this busy background here, outlined, many of them individually. So, watching TV, Wacom tablet in my lap, laptop on the armchair, and I'm cutting out leaves on every palm frond so that I can put the background that I want behind it. Okay.
How much do you love CS5's new refining mask feature?
You know, it's great, and it's the best tool that they've had in a while for masking. And I also use software called On1 Mask Pro, and we have a relationship with On1 through Photomorphos. And actually, anybody that is watching can. We have a link, right, David? We've got a link on Photomorphos. If they go to www.photomorphos.com, anybody in the CreativeLIVE audience can click in there and get a copy of their program, not Perfect Layers, sorry, it's Photo Tools. So there's, what, about 200 different effects and layers that you can apply in a layered way and to your image, and you can access it through Photoshop or Lightroom. So it's valued at, I don't know, $100 to $150 or something like that. So that's a bonus for everybody. Okay. And then you begin to think in series. Kind of like the insects and so forth. And I wanted to show these two because the only Photoshop there's Photoshop in here to isolate the elements and to do some colorizing and so forth. These are still life shot in my studio. I've done some work in Photoshop, created a print, coated the print with several different coatings, these are, you know, long ago, 10 years ago, coated with some French cracking glaze, rubbed it with oil paint, rubbed the oil paint off, rephotographed it. So it all doesn't have to be in Photoshop. You know, there are no limits. So experiment, experiment, experiment. Oops, I did not want to set that as rejected, so let me unmark that. I want to get back to the grid. I'll show you this as well. There's a series that I did. So I mean, if we're talking color, this is going through my computer to the internet and over the cameras and routed this way, and we'll talk about color calibration. And everybody who's watching live on the internet, their monitors are a whole, their own story, whether they're calibrated or not. So your colors that you're looking at may not actually be the image colors unless you're looking on my calibrated monitor. And I won't say anything more about that. But some of these high key things in some feeds are gaining contrast, and so you're not going to see the delicacy of it. Let me see if I can help that out here just a little bit. I'm going to, yeah, okay, there. So you can see some of the background details. So playing with texture, playing with layering doesn't all have to occur digitally. I shot this image of a calla lily in my studio. I hung up a sheet of old parchment paper behind the calla lily. I put the glass vase and the other calla lilies in behind this calla lily and put a light source backlighting that so that what you're seeing is the calla lily in front of the parchment and the shadow of the other calla lilies and vase in behind. And so you get a nice, you get a nice play on the texture as well. And I can actually take and select all three of these and go in here and sync them. And let's just check all. And we can go back and look at them all there. So you can see a little bit better. So that's all three and then one more. So.